Hello, Barry Bryson here. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. We're going to end our study of the book of Acts through the people that we meet in the book of Acts and their qualities today. And we're not looking at an individual, we're looking at a group of men, all who had the same job. We want to talk about centurions. In the Gospels and in the book of Acts, centurions are nearly universally portrayed in a positive light. Um, Early in Matthew chapter 8, after the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus encounters a centurion whose servant is sick and about to die and asks Jesus to heal him. And we see this man, this Roman man, have faith that Jesus can heal in ways that most Jews did not even have. And when Jesus says, I'll come, the centurion says, quite tellingly, you don't have to do that. I'm a man who understands authority. I understand chain of command, people above me that I answer to, people who answer to me. And I understand that you have authority in this matter. And all you have to do is say it, and it'll happen. And Jesus marvels, and Jesus is so surprised and says, I've never found this great faith anywhere in Israel. And that encounter kind of sets the tone. Even the centurion at the cross confessed that Jesus was the Son of God. In the book of Acts, we learn that the first Gentile convert to Christianity was a centurion named Cornelius. And we've already talked about Cornelius. I want to focus on two different centurions we meet at the end of the book of Acts, one whose name we know and one whose name we do not. But both are good men, and the quality that centurions, to me, always exemplify is duty. A centurion was the equivalent of a sergeant, I guess, in our army, soldiers, Marines. Sergeant is the equivalent. There's the top echelon of an enlisted man, not someone who had purchased, a higher rank, but they have enlisted, and they have enlisted for 20 years, and they're not supposed to get married during those 20 years. If they make it to the end of those 20 years, they get a nice retirement and property. Most of them did not live to see their 20 years completed. They were legendary. They were the core of the Roman army, and then through the army, the projection of Roman power. They were known to be men of duty. They were called. Their nickname was Fat Calves because they weren't riding horses; they were marching, and they led the enlisted men. They could lead more than 100. Centurion is a leader of 100, but they could lead more than 100. They could lead maybe 4, 5, 600, um, and wield a great deal of power. They were in charge of boots on the ground, really, throughout the Roman Empire on a day-to-day basis. And we see these guys, especially Claudius Lysias and the unnamed centurion in Acts 27, doing their job and going above and beyond. In Acts 27, 21, I should say, the Apostle Paul has come to Jerusalem after many years' absence to bring a contribution to the poor saints. When he gets there, James says, well, that's all well and good. This is James, the Lord's brother. But we got a problem because people don't like you here. They think that you're telling Jews they don't have to obey the laws of Moses. So, to make things copacetic, we've got some Christian men here who've made a vow at the Jewish temple, go with them to the temple and pay for their vow, and everybody will know you're kosher, literally, and um, and go do that. Well, Paul did that, and when he was there, people, Jews from the empire, recognized him. They felt that he was in the temple to be up to no good, and they incited the crowd, and the crowd was about to execute Paul. And Paul was about to meet the same fate that Stephen met, and he was there to see it. However, in the temple courts, Connected to the temple courts is the fortress, the Roman fortress of Antonia. And the officer of the day, a man named Claudius Lysias, the centurion in charge, took his troops, went into the melee to rescue a man he knew to be a Jew. He doesn't know he's a Roman citizen. This is just a Jew. These troubling, infuriating people, they're about to beat up one of their own. And what does he do? He does his job, is what he does. He goes in and rescues this guy from the mob, and he keeps peace and order, and he keeps the rule of law. He does his job. When he finds out that Paul is a Roman citizen, he treats him exactly as a Roman citizen. When Claudius Lysias finds out about the plot to assassinate Paul, he has Paul transferred from Jerusalem to Caesarea, and he sends a squad of troops large enough to assure his safety on the way there, writes a letter of explanation to the people at the other end of the line. He's a man who goes above and beyond to take care of Paul, who is nothing to him. But it's his job, and he does it, and he goes above and beyond to do the thing that he's expected to do. He is a man of duty. So Paul, goes to Caesarea. He's in jail there for a while. He probably could have been set free, but he appeals to Caesar, and therefore he's being transported to Rome. And much of that journey is going to be on a boat, on a ship crossing the Mediterranean Sea. When they finally leave port to hit open sea, Paul tells them they shouldn't do that. They should winter. But they do anyway, and they hit this terrible storm. And Acts chapter 27 is such an exciting passage of scripture. It is the oldest written account, personal account of a shipwreck in human history. This is the earliest. And it tells us a lot about the maritime practices of the day that we would not know anyplace else. But what I want us to think about during this shipwreck is on this ship there were multiple prisoners being transported by a centurion and a squad of soldiers. Paul came to be very important to them all. And everything Paul said would happen did happen. And Paul told them that if you just stick together, then we're all going to be saved. Nobody's going to lose their life. They run the boat up on the rocks and the boat smashes up. And the soldiers want to kill the prisoners because it will be their heads if they let any prisoner escape. But the centurion, wanting to bring Paul safely through, kept them from their intention and commanded those who could swim they should jump overboard first and get to land. And the rest should follow on planks and other various things from the ship. And it happened that they were all brought safely to land. What a good guy this guy is. He would not that would be the easy thing to do. That would be the thing you might expect someone to do, but he would not do it. He would not do it because because of his desire, knowing Paul is innocent, knowing Paul has saved their necks, he's not going to let them kill Paul. And so he wants to keep Paul alive. Again, above and beyond the call of duty, because he is a man of duty. And I think every one of the centurions we meet in Scripture fit this description. They do their jobs, and sometimes their job is not the thing that that they should be doing, like presiding over the crucifixion of Jesus. But even in the midst of doing that job, the centurion says, "Surely this was the Son of God," and 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 they just as a class of men are perhaps the most exemplary class of men that we meet in the New Testament. Okay. Well, that concludes that study. We're going to talk matriarchs, and we're going to talk about the women in the Abraham story. We're going to start in Genesis chapter 12 and start talking about Sarah and talk about the women who were the spouses of the patriarchs. Talk about the matriarchs and tell their stories. We'll begin that next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.